AEW released the All-In 2023 footage on this week's edition of Dynamite featuring CM Punk, Jack Perry, and others. And I'll be honest, I did not want to necessarily do a video on this. You guys know, if you watched the channel before, the things I enjoy most are talking about wrestling storylines, character development, all of this other stuff. That's what I enjoy. And it's one of the reasons why we probably have more WWE videos, without question, on this channel than we do AEW videos. It's just because, for right now, that is a product that I seem to get invested in more in the things that I enjoy than AEW. But this is not, for me, a WWE versus AEW thing. This is simply a matter of looking at professional wrestling history and seeing what are the things that work and what are the things that don't work. AEW decision to air the footage from All In would have worked in the right scenario. There was a scenario where you could have pulled this off and made this work. Here's the real problem, though. That scenario does not exist because CM Punk is no longer employed by AEW. He is currently employed by WWE. And that is the real issue I have with this. Because as I said, I love studying professional wrestling history. I love seeing what different promoters tried to do to be successful, how they increased their business, all those things. Those are just the things that, again, I get invested in. I like to see what has worked throughout history. This is the kind of stuff where if you have the payoff, if you can give the fans the payoff that they need for this, if you can play this and then you get to the feud between CM Punk and Jack Perry, or the feud between CM Punk and FTR and Jack Perry and the Young Bucks, that's a feud that you can sell if this is the way you go about it. But the problem is there is no way to pay this off if you're presenting this within your professional wrestling television show, where everything else is part of a storyline, everything else is part of building up these different characters, wrestlers, whatever you want to label them as. This was something that just felt so different from everything else, because even though you can make the argument that, well, hey, they're just trying to sell the FTR versus Young Bucks match at AEW Dynasty on pay-per-view coming up soon. Sure, but the two central figures of the footage are not involved in that in any way, shape, or form. CM Punk is in WWE. Jack Perry is doing stuff in New Japan. Is he still under contract for AEW? That's up for debate, whatever you think. But that's the real issue here that I have. It's not, I know, trust me, I know the conversations that are had online, WWE versus AEW, the tribalism, all this, I get it. But this is where I try to look at it from the standpoint of, let's really go a little bit deeper and see, is this something that can work in the current atmosphere, in the current setting? And I think before this was even released, you knew this was something that would not work. And that's the real issue here, is that there was never a payoff that you could sell to fans, because what do people do? Even if they tune back in next week, is CM Punk going to be on AEW Dynamite? No. Is Jack Perry? Maybe. I don't know. But that's the real problem. You're going to have a great FTR Young Bucks match. If you enjoy their matches before, I guarantee you they're going to have another good match. They could still have had it without this added to it. CM Punk's not interfering in that match, right? So you're not getting the real payoff. The crowd is chanting for CM Punk when the Young Bucks appear on screen after this, within the confines of a professional wrestling television show. Sure, we've seen people chant for other workers and other companies before, but this is in direct relation to something that you chose to put on your air, and however long afterwards, they're chanting for someone who is one of the biggest stars in WWE. And this is where I think we have to really take a hard look at this. And like I said, understand what has and hasn't worked. This is not the Monday Night Wars. There are times where I feel like we want it to be that way, right? For the longest time, you had AEW going up in NXT and all this other stuff. And because it was that was the best time to be a wrestling fan for a lot of people. Not everyone, but a lot of people felt like that was the best time to be a fan because you had two different products putting on the best possible show they could. Things were hot. And it was that competitive nature where one doing this makes the other want to do that. And it forced everyone to be at the top of their game because it was survive or die, right? That's basically what it was in that era. WWE wanted to put WCW out of business. WCW wanted to put WWE out of business. This is not the current landscape in professional wrestling. AEW is not going to put WWE out of business by showing footage of CM Punk going after someone backstage. Punk doesn't work there. And I know Punk had the interview with Ariel Helwani pointing out, all the stuff that his side claimed that happened in this and everything. And so it's fine. Even if you put the footage out with the intention of making CM Punk look bad, what is the end game? Is everyone just going to stop watching CM Punk and they're just going to all come watch AEW? That's where the business aspect of this is where I find the most baffling, is that, sure, you could say, well, we're going to expose CM Punk for what he said or did. That's fine. Was CM Punk in the wrong on some of the stuff he did? Of course. I don't know that you would find anybody out there who truly believes that CM Punk did zero things wrong along the entire course of this, going all the way back from All Out to All In and everything in between or after, right? Sure, everyone, I'm sure, can say there were some mistakes made along the way from multiple parties, CM Punk included. But, once again, if that is the case and CM Punk is still under contract in AEW, you can do something with that. But you can't. He's not there. And so you're not teasing a match. And my question is, what does this really accomplish for the Young Bucks and FTR, who now have this sort of hanging over their storyline, which is, again, the stuff that I like. I want to see, how do you push a story? What are the stories you're telling to get me invested more in the match? The backstory between FTR and the Young Bucks already existed. It was already one you could have told in a way that did not involve CM Punk, someone who is working for the other company. And I think that is where I don't understand the decision other than the ratings bump that you're probably going to get. And maybe that was the intention. Hey, we'll just get this rating bump and we'll just figure out everything else after the fact. If that's the case, let's see if it works. I'm not going to say it's not because I can't prove that just yet. But history does tell us that when you go the route of the inside stuff, all of this that is not directly related to the story that you're trying to tell in the ring, it doesn't work. And that is where I do understand some people saying, well, this could be WCW 2000. Let me tell you, I watched WCW 2000. This was probably very, very mild compared to the things that we saw on a weekly basis from WCW in 2000. I want to make sure that's very clear. But one of the themes is that you were going with something that was, quote unquote, inside baseball, right? It was something that only a hardcore percentage of fans would understand and or be able to get kind of the whole point of this, right? And so I think, as I've said before, the promoter's job is to find a way to increase business. The ratings bump, maybe that increases business a little bit, but you're not increasing business by giving people what you are teasing. And in this, if you showed this straight up without telling anybody who had never watched AEW or WWE, and look, I know that's not necessarily the point here. You're not trying to just go out and make this appeal to people who've never watched the product before. You're trying to do this for your hardcore audience. But there's always going to be a ceiling there if this is the kind of stuff you're willing to do, because there is no payoff. Because if you show this to anyone, they're going to think, wow, they're setting up something between that guy who just attacked that guy backstage. But they're not. And that's the whole point, is I think you're teasing something that you cannot deliver. Whether it's trying to gain new fans, right? Isn't that the goal? As I said, for the promoter, you want to increase your business. That usually comes with increasing your audience, your fan base. If the goal is to increase new fans, how could any fan who turned this on randomly on their television and said, you know what, I'm going to check out professional wrestling tonight, and let's say this is the thing that they see, they will come back next week maybe, because they'll say, wow, that guy just attacked that guy backstage. That was really cool. But they're not going to get anyone involved in the whole central focus of this. Sure, they'll get FTR, they'll get the Young Bucks, but they're going to be saying, hey, where's that guy that attacked the other guy? Oh, wow, he's on WWE. He's not an AEW. That does not serve the purpose, I think, of being able to effectively put this out there and get any sort of gain from it other than just a quick ratings burst where the backlash has been obvious. Like, there has been tons of criticism surrounding this. And again, I wish, and it will never be this way again, trust me, I know, because of the era that we're in. I wish this could be something that moves beyond WWE versus AEW. But we, I think, as a society sometimes are so set on us versus them, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think this is the kind of stuff where all of a sudden it's back to us versus them. If AEW continues to do what AEW does best, and what is the tagline they've been using, right? Isn't it like, we're the best wrestle or something like that? Wasn't that the tagline they've started using? Do that. Just be the best professional wrestling company in the world. Professional wrestling. The in-ring wrestling, that's what they've always pushed. The highest caliber out there. Sell that. Don't waste your television time doing this kind of stuff, because it does not give you kind of that goodwill from your existing fans or the fans that may have thought, you know what, I'm very curious about this AEW thing. It's different than WWE. It's more of my taste. I really like the in-ring stuff. I like the stuff they do in the ring with all the, whatever, right? Whatever kind of wrestling style appeals to you. But this is the kind of stuff that doesn't do that. It's a complete change from what you've been trying to sell people. And that is, we are going to be the best wrestling company in the world. Focus on wrestling. Like, that has been the tagline. That's been the motto. And so, because this is such a big departure from this, I think that was a mistake. And that's what I don't know. Like, to me, this felt like a personal grudge playing out on a weekly television program. That's worked before, but not when you don't have one part of this to complete the match that professional wrestling is built around. You build professional wrestling around matches. The angles, sure, right? And that's the thing. Like, we can look at all the stuff and say, well, Cody and The Rock just cut a 40-minute promo or whatever on Raw. But they're building that in anticipation of a match. You are not getting that in this scenario. I think that's the biggest issue here, is you're trying to build something. And look, I know there are going to be people who say, but you are getting the match. You're getting FTR and the Young Bucks. That has nothing to do with the whole point of showing the footage, other than the fact is to say what? That the Young Bucks were so angered or they were thrown off by everything that happened in this, that's why we didn't beat you. Are you telling me you could not tell another story another way than that? Than to put your talent in that position? This doesn't do anything for the Young Bucks or FTR. Nothing. And that's another problem. And I think that's where I just, as a professional wrestling fan, I want AEW to succeed. Again, I've bought every pay-per-view that they put out since they started. Do I watch AEW on a regular basis anymore the way I used to? No, I don't. I'm just going to be honest, because as a professional wrestling fan, I have choices. I'm able to enjoy what I enjoy. I don't have to like everything. And I think sometimes you can get in that bubble where it's like, oh, well, you have to like everyone, because if you don't like this, then you hate that. That's not true. We all have different tastes. We all grew up on different types of wrestling. And I think it's a situation now where if you go back, the insider stuff does not draw money the way that just presenting wrestling as, you don't have to use sports entertainment. You can use whatever way you want to do it. Like, it's just the inside stuff is not the stuff that draws money. It is the true personal issues that can draw money. But you are not going to be able to give that to your fan base here in any way, shape, or form. And again, I don't think it adds anything to the feud that they're trying to build this around. And so it's a lose-lose for all parties. Who comes out of this the winner? That's the real question here. Other than the ratings bump that we know will be there. And I am recording this before the ratings come out, so I can't even tell you how much of a draw it's going to be. But who is really the winner here? And I know there are going to be people saying it's CM Punk. But are there really strong feelings as to say that AEW is the big winner coming out of this? And I think that's it. They put this on their show. AEW has a huge roster of talent. Huge roster of talent. I mean, it is incredible. Like, one of the most talented rosters probably we've ever seen in terms of the number and quality. And I know some people may disagree with that, but there are a lot of good talent there. But you're telling me you'd rather share that on your screen than actually put together a couple vignettes for a couple talents that you want to spotlight now moving forward. Those kind of things. I think that's the problem here, is this felt like something that was a personal grudge playing out And that segment could have been used for better reasons than that. Even if you want to put the Young Bucks over as the ultimate heels, they're going to use this footage as an excuse and all this other stuff. Respond on a tweet. Respond in a press conference. Respond on a podcast. Because WWE did not play this out with CM Punk on their show. CM Punk did not say all of this stuff on Raw, at WrestleMania, or anywhere. He said it on a podcast. And I think that is where you take the time to respond on a podcast. That's fine. Again, Tony Khan, put out a press release and say, here's all the things that Punk lied about or got wrong. Do that. But you take the time to respond on your television show that is already jam-packed every single week, trying to get all these new talents that you've acquired the spotlight that they need to be successful. But instead, you're putting time into this that, again, should have been spent elsewhere and should have been spent on something else. Now, there may be people who say, watch what's going to happen. AEW is going to do the best ratings they've ever done after this. Why? Why would they? Are people going to wait that long for the CM Punk versus Jack Perry match that's never going to happen? Because that's the only payoff you're going to have here. If you didn't want it to get to this point, there are a lot of things that people could say how this played out and everything. Hey, a lot of people could have done things differently here, CM Punk included. But this is one where at some point, you have to just let this thing go. And I know CM Punk's the one that brought it up. I get it. And AEW has every right to respond. I am not saying that in the slightest. They do have every right to respond. And in all honesty, they probably should have. But not this way. This was not the way to do it. Because this only now serves CM Punk. It doesn't serve AEW in any sort of way. He is the central figure of this entire thing in a match that they're trying to sell that they're not going to be able to sell in a tag team match that has nothing to do with him. So I think it's a lose-lose. And I think, again, for me, the real issue of this entire thing is just a matter of what are you giving the fans after this? What was the point that's going to make this a decision that you look back on and say, this was the right move? I don't see that in this scenario. And so that was just my thoughts. I know everyone's going to have thoughts on how this thing played out, and I know that there will be disagreements in a lot of different places. But again, I think sometimes this is a matter of wanting AEW to succeed because there is a necessity in professional wrestling to have an AEW, to have an alternative. There always has been. But I think AEW needs to focus on what AEW does best, and that is give you tremendous professional wrestling matches. Whether you like some of the talent or not, whether you don't like certain styles, that's fine. But they can do wrestling inside of the ring with some of the very skilled talents that they have as good as anybody in the world. Cannot see them coming out of this thinking this was the right move. And so maybe it's for the best. Maybe you learn another hard lesson. And perhaps AEW is better for it coming out of this. Maybe. It's always possible. Let me know your thought about the segment with the all-in footage. And hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Like I said, I don't like doing these videos because I want to talk about the actual storylines, the actual wrestling, and all of that. I don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. But it is a big story, and we're doing it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Be civil, please. I know it's not always easy, but let me know your thought about this, about the AEW all-in footage involving CM Punk and Jack Perry.